Welcome to today's Makino Experience Center. My name's Bill Howard. I'm the product line manager here at Makino for vertical machining centers. Today, what we'd like to talk about is the DA300 automation package and what it will do for your manufacturing operations. I'd like to take care of a little housekeeping. As we're going through the presentation, you'll see over here there's a chat and Q&A, and there's a box down here in the bottom right corner. As we're going through this today, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those in. We've reserved a little bit of time at the end of the presentation. We'll try to address as many of those questions as possible. I'm coming to you today from one of two. I'm in the building on the right here. That's our Makino headquarters, just north of the city of Cincinnati in an area called Mason, Ohio. There is actually two experience centers in this building, one that I'm coming to you from now and one down the hall. On the left side of the screen is our facility in Auburn Hills, Michigan, north of Detroit. We also have two experience centers there. So we have the capability. I'd like to encourage you with these experience centers, if you have a project, you have a machine, you have a part you need to make, we have the ability to have directed, confidential meetings with you and your folks so that we can discuss your issues and problems and possible Makino solutions. And by doing it using the EC centers, you can have as many of your folks involved as you need, and we can have many of our folks involved as well. So I'd like to encourage you, get in contact with our local sales force or regional managers, and we can use this experience center, or these experience centers, basically to bring solutions to your manufacturing issues and problems. Today, we're going to talk about the DA300 package. So I'm going to start through this. Keep in mind, the DA300 package is something we've added or incorporated into our existing DA300 machine. So we're not going to talk much about the machine today. Matter of fact, there are some previous experience centers out there on the DA300, so if you want to learn more about the specific machine, you can go to one of those on our archive, www.makino.com. What we want to talk about today is the automation package that we've added to the DA300. We've added an integral chuck on the tilt rotary table. We've got a new pallet interface. We've got integrated automation. It's all put together and works as one, seamless. Integrate a cell controller, something that has a brain that makes all this work. And then it's a fixed configuration, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to show a quick animation here. And what you'll see, keep in mind, there's several segments to this. There's the DA300 existing machine. There's what we call the WPS, the work pallet system. There's the larger tool magazine, ATC 118. And then the control that makes all this work. So here we'll run this automation. There in the front, that's the 40 tool work pallet system you can see there. And then on the side of the machine is an ATC 118. So obviously as you add more work pieces, 40 pallets, you're going to need more tooling capability. So we're adding that, and those are integral parts of the package for the DA300 automation. Now, what is the WPS, the work pallet system? Well, it's a newly developed 40 pallet stocker system. There's 8 pallets per layer and 5 layers. So it's stacked up, as you can see. It's about 360 millimeters in diameter, and on the top row, there's 8 pallets there on the top that you can get up to 300 millimeters in height. Also incorporated into this is a load-unload station or work setting setup station so that you can easily, conveniently load and unload workpiece. You keep about 40 pallets busy, you need a nice, convenient way of loading and unloading parts. Okay, let's talk about the WPS, the work pallet system. As I said, it's about 360 millimeter in diameter. The standard height is 285, although on the top layer we can get to 300 millimeter in height, and it's 60 kg weight. Now, the neat thing to notice here on this diagram on the right side of the screen is because it's integral, this is the C-axis table, and the A is the tilt. Because it's integral, it maximizes your workpiece size that you can handle and also maximizes the weight that you can have. So you don't have deduct there for a chuck or a pallet or things like that. So key characteristics of the DA300 automation package. This is what the automation looks like. Over on the left side, this is the operator station. So everything, there's a robot arm and basically it shovels around, goes up and down for the 5 different levels, and then we'll feed into and out of the load unload station or workset station. And the diagram on the right, it's feeding in and out of the machine tool. So that gives you an idea of the basic solid model, if you will, of the WPS system. This is actually what it looks like with the covers removed. You can see the higher height on the 8 pallets in the top row. So that's where you get the 300 millimeter height. All the other layers, the 4 other layers, are 280. So 40 pallets total. Now, this is kind of unique, but if you think about 40 pallets, you're going to need a way to conveniently, efficiently load and unload workpieces. So there's actually a load-unload station or a work set station built right in. It can rotate so you can get all the way around the pallet. It can lock in place. So if you're trying to load a workpiece onto a fixture, you're not fighting it rotating away from you. So that's a standard feature of the DA300 automation package. This is just some pictures. This is in the rack. So you can, again, see the different layers, and you can see how the robot arm would go around to the different layers, go up and down. And then this is looking from the rack towards the machining center, off in the distance, the DA300. A little video here shows flying through the rack, and then it shows the buildup of the load size and capability. Let me go back and I'll run that. It's quick, but I'll run it again real quick to give you an idea. Okay, so we've talked about the pallet system, the automatic work pallet system. Let's talk about how it interfaces to the machine. Obviously, the 40 pallets have to get onto and off of the machine. We've talked a little bit about the robot. Here is that robot reaching in, and down at the bottom here, you can see the integral chuck built down into the DA300. This is a little short video that's going to show the door open and the robot arm come through. And again, notice the DA300 table down there. So here you got a workpiece coming in. It's going to go down, clamp in place. Robot goes back out, the door closes, and you've done a pallet change, and now you can get any one of those 40 pallets into and out of the machine that quick, efficient. Let's talk about that polygonal taper work pallet. First off, we use the characteristics of the DA300, the tilt rotary table. So the clamp capability or brake is the same. So you can lock a workpiece in place at an odd angle, and you can mill and cut on that workpiece. So we've kept the features of the DA300. What we've done, you'll notice the face The face that interfaces with your work is an HSK A125. So large, easy to work with, and actually used a lot in the industry. On the clamp side is an HSK A63. So we're literally going up in there and clamping on a HSK A63. There's a mechanical clamp force there. We can perform the polygonal taper you can see down here. What that allows us to do is as we put that on the table, that clocks and locks us in place. So the other thing about this is it's relatively inexpensive. So the cost is not like you're going to go out there and have to buy 40 pallets or 40 Aroa tables. Just to give you an idea, this is the interface. There's the taper. You can see the polygonal. If you can get a real quick look down in there, that's the HSK A63. Highly reliable, good stiffness and rigidity. And keep in mind, we're still relying upon the clamp capability of the A and C axis of the DA300. There's your polygonal. Down in there you can see the clamp for the HSK 63A. So very good design, outstanding design. Here's what it does for us. As we position, there's going to be looseness on basically the polygonal and the face. As we continue to clamp, we're going to close down that gap. And then eventually, as we clamp in position, there'll be zero gap around the polygonal and face-to-face contact. So very good stiffness and rigidity, and it makes it really, really good cutting platform. Also, it's very reliable as far as high positioning, high accuracy. Let's look at some advantages. We've put polygonal taper work and a clamped pallet. And if you go down through, obviously this has advantages everywhere except it says rigidity, but you know, you got to be aware that on a pallet, you're clamping way out at the corners. So obviously it's going to have, and you'll notice it's just a slight advantage in clamping. It's advantageous in space. We talked about that because it's built down in, so bigger, heavier workpiece, repeatability, and work limitation. That's the same kind of thing, full-size workpiece and full weight. Now, what we've done, this is the DAC and tilt axis. If you're machining way out here on the edges, obviously you can generate torque. And we've calculated, obviously given the size of the machine, how far out there you could get, and the power, we've calculated the torque that you could generate. And you'll notice within that red box is a machine of this size, that would be your torque. You'll notice with the polygonal taper, there's no issues or problems through the entire machine work zone. Matter of fact, if you look at our technique versus commercially available technique, very good performance for torsional rigidity, stiffness, so there's no concerns on that standpoint. The other thing is pallet positioning repeatability. In that video, it said plus or minus 2 micron, and here we actually ran, 10 different, and you'll see for rotationally, you're plus or minus 0.3 micron, and for Z-axis clamp, plus or minus 0.3. So we've performed significantly better than the specification for the machine. Now let's kind of shift. We talked earlier about, the different parts of the package. One was, and we talked about it first, was the pallets, 40 pallets, load unload station. Well, as you get more and more work, you're going to need more and more tools. So the ATC 118 is part of the package. And you'll see here there's a tool magazine, the ATC 60, that will be standard on the machine. And we've added an additional ATC 60. So this, if you go all the way to the left, the solid model shows the inner one would be the one on the machine. The outer one is the additional. You'll see the shutter shuttle or tool transport in there. This is the actual physical hardware on the floor. So again, the inner one would be on the machine, the outer one is the additional, and then here's the tool transfer mechanism. And this is the tool transfer mechanism by itself. So basically what happens is a tool from that inner magazine can come down and go right into the spindle. The outer magazine comes down to the shuttle, it goes over and goes right into the spindle. So here's again a quick video. It's very busy, but over on the right hand side you'll see the two magazines working together. There's the inner one rotating, there's the shuttle moving, there's the outer one rotating, there's a tool going down, and the shuttle would take that and go over to the tool change position. So what's that do for you? Number one, there's now 118 tools there. Because of the design, the seek times are no more than a standard DA300 AT660. You can be rotating the magazines independently using that shutter to queue up the next available tool. So it's outstanding. Numbers of tools as far as tool size, tool weight, tool length, it's identical to the standard DA300 machine. This is what it looks like in the cabinet from outside. Here's kind of the back corner. You'll notice there's a door here. So this is the door that opens out to service the outside ATC60. There's also a door over here. That's the door that opens up to service the inside ATC60. And you'll notice a little panel there. We'll show you that. There you go. If you think about it, the controls over on the front of the machine, now we're all the way around by the tool changer. So what this allows you to do, number one, you can open the door. You now have control of the magazine. You can keep cutting in the machine until it calls for a tool change. You have the ability to rotate the magazine, position, put tools in and out of the magazine. This is a schematic again. The outside magazine, the inside magazine standard on the machine. There's the outside door open. Here's the inside door open. So you could service the magazines independently. However, if you open either one of those doors, you've put the magazine in manual mode. You can keep cutting on the machine up until it wants to do a tool change, at which point in time it's going to suspend till you close the doors and say, I'm done and out of here. Now let's talk about one of the other features we talked about, and that's how do I make this work pallet system run? How do I manage it? Well, the neat thing about it, we want to be able to check the status of all the pallets. We want to realize and be able to do load, unload, and everything from one screen. We don't want to be running to multiple screens. We want it to be operator friendly and efficient, not only from looking at it visually, but being able to work at the load, unload, work set station. And we want the operation mode so that the customer can readily go in and change what's happening. What plan? What are you working towards? So you'll see the screen there on the lower left. You'll notice right away it's very visual driven. Now here's a little animation that shows kind of how that came about. There's the rack. Well, if you take all those pallets, there's the control. And you'll notice we've sprinkled colors in there and some other things. You can look at, of all the work I've got set in there, how long is it going to take to run? And the key thing here is it's all run by one station, one operating screen that just happens to be the same screen that you operate the machine from. Again, very visually driven. Here's all the pallets. There's 40 of them there. Well, you'll notice there's different colors. We'll explain what those different colors mean in a minute. You'll notice there's one here that's got a circle around it in blue. Well, if you click on any one of those, Here you'll notice that that's pallet 30, and there's the information about 30, including its program and everything else. We also get a real quick view of what's at the load-unload station. So you notice pallet 5 sitting there right now. And what's all this other stuff mean? Well, it means I've got 1, 6, 7, and 8 more waiting to get there. And what's going on at the machine? Well, it's machining number 30, and that's because, you know, over here you'll see number 30 is on the machine. 28's next in line, followed by 35, 34, 19, and then there's 6 others queued up here. So in one look, you know exactly what's going on out there. Well, it'd be nice to know what those colors mean, right? Well, here's what the colors mean. Green means ready to go. In other words, anything that's green, 3, 4, 18, 19, those are pallets loaded, ready to go to the machine. Anything that's orange, it's been machined and is waiting to go to the load-unload station and be unloaded. Blue means machining. Well, we've already talked about pallet 30 and the fact that it was on the machine. Yellow is suspend. We've suspended those pallets. Could be that we broke a tool, could be the fixtures boogered up, but for whatever reason, we can suspend those pallets, which is going to keep them from getting, you know, called up to load unload. Waiting setup, that's pallets that are probably empty. We're waiting them to be called up to the load unload station and have a fixture workpiece put on them. Pallet alarm, we didn't put any red ones out there, but if you go into the machine and you have a broken tool, and rather than going in there and having another tool break into that tool, we'll alarm that pallet, offload it, put it back in the rack, and signify it with the red symbol. And then there's this one down here at the bottom. It's called Express. What happens when you're out there, you got everything set up, and you get a hot job? Well, you can declare that an Express, and it's going to jump ahead in the line, if you will, to be machined. Now, this handles all the pallets, and the interesting thing too is if you have op A, op B, op C, op D, it will allow you to differentiate the different sides of the pallet. So there's the visualness. Easy. All you got to do, hopefully you're not colorblind, but all you got to do is remember those colors, and in one glance you know the status of all 40 pallets. You can go in on any pallet, call up, there's pallet number 1, so we've hit on 1, and there's the data about it. And obviously you can switch and look at any other pallet. Keep in mind this is the machine control, so you can also go in and look at machine status, tool life, tool alarms, that kind of thing. What about the other components? Well, this is the work set station. What's going on there? Well, pallet number 5 is currently there. And notice down here, this means that the system has control of the pallet. This means that the operator, notice where the door is at. This means that it's in the middle of changing a pallet in and out. So 5's there currently. 1 is next, 6, 7. Remember 1, we had priority, express. So notice what it did. It bumped it up. And then there's 9 other ones waiting here. Here's the machine. This is on the table, and this is first in line. Well, 35. 28's being machined. 35's next. Then we got 34, 19, 18, and 5, plus 5. What's that mean? Well, that means down here, 34, 19, 18. Then here's 34, 19, 18. Those 5 are 23, 40, 37, 3, and 4. So now you can get a longer term look at what work is waiting either at the load unload station, work set station, or in the machine. Notice machining, buffering, so that's Priority 1 right now would be to get 35 over and on the machine, then 34, 19, 18, 10. So it's not a big distance, but you can see where the load unload station's at and where the control's at. And you'll notice that screen's up on the control right now. Well, I don't want to have to run from here to there every time. So there's a screen there that allows us to bring up and look at pallet order, suspend, make ready. When I'm done, ready to go. So I have a secondary screen there to support the workset station load unload. And when we can go in, one of the things that was on that one screen, you're getting ready to go away for the weekend and you want to load this thing up. Well, gee, do I have enough work loaded to get me through the weekend? It will go in and look at all the pallets that are loaded in green, ready to go, and it will tell you basically when all this work's going to be done. So that allows you to predict what's going on. Another thing is, if you're a shop and you have a ton of jobs, and a lot of them look a lot alike, but they have very specific fixturing, you can actually display as part of that screen a picture of the part, or maybe you have a fixture that you have to build before you put the part in it. That's basically a file that we can send out there, an image that says, hey, we're going to help you make sure that you get the fixture right and you get the workpiece on the fixture right. So this is helping you. Again, keep in mind there's 40 parts out there, or maybe more, because you can have multiple parts on a given size. The normal flow, if you just put this thing in and walked away from it, normal flow would be, I want to machine pallet 1, 2, 3. Once it's done, I want to unload pallet 1, 2, 3. So you can see it's very straightforward, very basic. And that may work a lot of the time. But what I want to be able to do, and again, using the capabilities here, I want to go in and say, here we're looking at the flow to the machine, 1, 2, 3. All of a sudden, I don't want it to be 1, 2, 3. I want to take pallet number 3 and move it up ahead of pallet number 2. I can do that. I can go in there and basically move pallets around in priority, in queue, basically, ahead of the machine. I can do the same thing at the workset station. That kind of gives you an overview of the DA300 automation package. At this point in time, we're going to throw it open for questions.
Yeah, there's some questions that have come in. There was one that's kind of a procedure. I'll handle it first. It basically asking about getting a copy of this. And what I'd like to tell everybody, if you have registered for this particular experience center, you'll be getting an email after this presentation, and there'll be a link on that email. So if you want to review this, or if there's some folks at your place that couldn't make the Experience Center event, obviously then you can share that with them, and that gives you the opportunity to have more of your folks exposed to what we talked about here today. A couple other questions. Who builds the WPS-40? Well, the WPS-40 is actually built by a Makino company. The company is called Microbo. It's 100% owned subsidiary of Makino. So that's in-house. It's a Makino product, actually, as I said, built by Microbo. There was also some interest in the availability of the Polygonal taper work pallets. Those are a Makino design. They're actually built by a third-party tooling vendor, and those can be purchased from any Makino office globally. So wherever you're at. There was another question here about retrofit. Unfortunately, as you can see, the polygonal taper is built into the chuck or into the table of the DA300. So this package cannot be retrofit to an existing DA300. The package is designed to be the WPS, the polygonal taper with the chuck built right into the table, the ATC 118, and then obviously the control. There was another question here about vices, and I can't answer that. As far as sizes, I can give you an idea there, kind of where the question was heading. You have up to a 360 millimeter diameter, so about a little over 14 inches in diameter. And depending on whether it's in the top rack, there's 8 pallets that can go in the top rack. Those can be 300 millimeter tall. The other racks below that are 285. So that's 11 3/4 down to 11 1/4. And as far as weight, it's 60 kg, which is 133 pounds. I'm looking for, I think that's all the questions that we've had. And looking at the time, we're getting close on the time here. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the Experience Center here on the DA300 automation package. Again, if you've registered for this webinar, you should be getting an email with a link that will allow you to view again, or you could pass that link on to other folks in your organization. There's also on www.makino.com, there are some Experience Center archives out there about the DA300. We didn't talk anything about the base machine and characteristics of that. So obviously you can go out there and take a look at those as well. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this DA300 Automation Package Experience Center from Makino. Thank you very much.